So I've had a request to do some landscape classes. As I always say, I'm not a professional, but I'm happy to give things a go, and I really enjoy working with colour and working with different mediums. So today I'm going to attempt to do a colourful landscape. The materials that you will need, as usual, we'll just use a piece of watercolour paper, and I've taped that to a board. Now you don't need to tape it to a board if you don't have one. These are easy to make. I just had a piece of scrap cardboard and I just covered it in some clear contact. Also you'll need, not reading glasses, a mixing palette and a paintbrush, a couple of paintbrushes and a couple of jars of fresh water. Of course you'll need some watercolours, and you'll also need a pencil and an eraser. And today I'm going to be using this Posca pen, which it's basically an acrylic marker, really. So it's acrylic paint inside a marker. Sometimes they don't run smoothly, like really smoothly though. So you have to be quite, you know, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. So I'm crossing my fingers. I've just started to open this one. I'm hoping because it's brand new, it's going to be good and work well. And if you don't have that, here's a very battered Sharpie. You just need something that's going to outline your shapes in black, that isn't going to bleed into your colour, and that's going to give nice clean lines. So that's it. We should get started. Okay, so I thought I'd speed this part up to speed up the process. So what I'm actually doing is just concentrating on line, and I am just drawing really basic shapes, and I'm breaking down the shapes into even smaller shapes so we can create lots of different colour on our paper. When I thought what I would like to draw, I had the Australian countryside landscape in mind. So what I'm doing is just rolling hills, and I'm doing some flat plain lands, I'm doing some trees, and I'm also going to include some rocky outcrops or some mountains. They're more like rocky hills as opposed to mountains. And I'm keeping the lines and the shapes very simple. I didn't want to make it too complex because I was mainly concentrating on colour and line when actually creating this piece. So I'm just about done. Not too much more to add. I just thought that the hills were a little bit too big, so I just broke them down into more tangible sizes. And just about finished, and there we have it, ready for painting. So the next step is the painting, and what I'm actually going to do is just colour in each section the same colour, but I'm going to vary the amount of water that I add to the paint, and then that's going to make it look like I've used lots of different colours. I'm thinking when you're doing this, it's really important that you make sure one area is dried before you do some painting in the next area. So, you know, for example, if I were to do this sun, I would not paint this blue sky here because the sun colour and the blue sky colour would run into each other. So you might find yourself going from here to there to here to there, doing all different sections. So have clearly in your mind what kinds of colours you want to do your artwork. So I'm going to have mine lighter greens at the front. I might do some of these like a brownie colour, and then the mountains I'm going to do kind of, you know, browns and like greeny, olivey kinds of colours. So I'm not going to show you all of this, but I'll just show you doing a couple of the shapes, and then I'll show you when I've finished. So as usual, we dip our paintbrush into the water. Now I'm thinking we're going to do wet on dry today. So the first one I'm going to do is just paint a nice light green colour here, and I've got this colour here. So I've dipped my paintbrush into the water, and notice that I don't scratch my paintbrush to and fro in the pan. I just twist it around, so kind of in a circular motion, and that keeps your paintbrushes in pretty good condition. So this is going to be here, and now I can see that I've used way too much pigment on that, but that's okay. I'm just going to, now that looks like that's gotten a little bit dirty just there. That's okay. It's not painting over it perfectly, but it's not going to be perfect. So what I'm doing is just going around the outside, and you can see I haven't done it perfectly, and that's okay, because afterwards we're going to use the black Posca pen, or the any sort of permanent marker that you have probably should work. And even if you don't have that, you could even use charcoal. It's totally up to you. I don't want you not creating just because you haven't got all the equipment or all the tools. So I'm just going to leave that like that because I really like that look. I don't want to paint clear colours. I want some variation in the tones of each of these shapes. So now I might just go over here and paint this one, and I'm kind of thinking I might even do oranges and browns. When you paint, everything doesn't have to be realistic, does it? And that's the fun thing about painting. You can create your own little worlds, your own little images. And it's going to be a bit tricky for me to do it without turning it, but I'll try not to turn it just so I can show you how to do the second one. Now I could have done these mountains, you know, greens, greys, any colour really. I could have done them like snow-capped mountains, but I'm kind of keeping this bit, you know, fantasy, like lots of colourful shapes, something you might find in a book. Oh, I really love how that's gone, just like that. So I'm actually going to leave that, and then I'm going to press stop, and I'm going to let you continue painting, and I'm going to continue painting, but I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I'm going to pretty much do exactly the same as what I've done in these two shapes here. Now I've decided to stop halfway through and show you mine so far. I've decided to pay homage to all the gorgeous colours that you find, you know, in the outback in Australia, driving along the countryside. A lot of Australia is in drought at the moment, so that's why I've included some of these browner kinds of patches, some yellow patches over here. When you drive over the Blue Mountains and head west, you see these gorgeous canola fields. They're filled with these gorgeous yellow flowers. Just gorgeous. It's such a sight. It takes your breath away. And the mountains, I've continued to do the browns and darker colours. You know, the Blue Mountains are obviously blue. These are not the Blue Mountains. These just represent all the gorgeous, rich, red iron rocks that are very present in lots of places in Australia. So trying to make this a little bit Australiana with all these gorgeous earthy tones. So I'll stop there and continue going. Okay, now I've finished painting all of the shapes that I created in my Australian landscape. Now I need this to dry, and then what I'm going to do is get started on the black outlining. So we're going to create something that looks a little bit like lead lighting, or lead light glass, sorry. Which is always outlined in like black lead, basically really dark grey lead, and it just makes colours pop, and that's what we want to achieve with this piece that we're doing today. We want all those gorgeous colours to pop. So I'll press stop now, and I'm just going to dry it with the hairdryer. Now I have just opened my Posca pen, and as you can see it's meant to be black. But what you need to do is just press until the black comes out. And if you just keep pressing, giving it a shake, don't want to get it all over my work, but just keep pressing. Probably not a good idea to do it on this, just on a scrap piece of paper. And what will happen, the ink will work its way down. It's a bit like a textile or a marker. The ink works its way down to the tip, and you can see that that's just starting to come down now. So I'll continue that, and then we'll get started with our outlining. Okay, so the black has worked its way down. What I might do is just a little bit closer. And I've totally dried this. It's perfectly dried. So what we want to do is create a nice, steady black line in between each of the colours. Should be able to see that. So what we're going to do is outline every single shape. Now I'm hoping that this is thick enough. Now remember, if you don't have one of these, you might like to use a thick permanent marker. So I'm just going to spin it around, but I'm pretty sure you've got the idea. Now, ideally I would actually like this to be a bit darker, a bit thicker, but you work with what you have. So I'm not going to show you me outlining. Now remember, before I finish that sentence, this is actually acrylic paints, so I don't want to stick my hand in it and smudge it and ruin all the hard work that I've gone to in painting this. So I'm going to be extremely careful when I outline this and make sure that I do not put my hand in the part that I've outlined. If I'm turning this a little bit on the side, it's actually making the pen a little bit thicker. Not much, but enough. Now I wonder if anyone recognised these two trees. I'm a bit of a fan. My camera actually just died, so I've recharged it and given it some space. So as I was saying, I'm a fan of the Starry Night, and I put a couple of Van Gogh's trees, well, not quite his trees, but I paid homage to my love for his work in these two trees. And you know, pretty much the setup too and the idea here. So when you do art, when you do create artworks or create pieces or create paintings or whatever you want to call it, you always have all these ideas floating through your head as to where you can draw inspiration from, or you know, what style would you like to do. You could literally not use watercolors with this. You could use acrylic paints and do the same thing. I am thinking this would look pretty fantastic too, using oil pastels, which are those really oily, greasy crayon type things. That would work marvelously with this. In fact, that's given me an idea, and I might actually do something along those lines. I might actually work with an oil, like the oil pastels. So anyway, what I'm going to do is continue working on this. I don't want to bore you with me doing all the black outline tracing, but I think you're getting the idea, and I think you'll agree with me that it looks fairly effective. Now, once I have done all the tracing, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to trace black around the outside. I don't think I will, actually. I'll leave all the edges as is, but just do all the tracing on all the internal lines. So I'm going to press stop, and then I'll come back once I've done that. Only a couple of days ago in my Facebook feed, a TEDx talk came up, and it was all about joy. And it was a woman, I can't remember her name, but it's worth finding to watch it. And she just stated that they did investigations, and what brought people joy is colour, and lots of it, repetition, lots of colour. And that's why I love painting. I love creating colourful pieces. I love putting artworks of mine or the kids, you know, as they've grown up. Even now, some of Maddie's work takes pride of place in our front lounge room. Colour brings joy, and I really hope creating this piece brings you joy today. I've had fun doing it. I've never done anything like this before. I did not come up with the idea of watercolour with black around it. Somebody a long time ago would have come up with that, but the design was mine. The idea of doing black around that was not mine. It's lots and lots of people have done it. But me relating it to the Australian outback and to Australia has made this piece mine. So I hope you've enjoyed watching the watercolour with the black outline today. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call it, but if you do get enjoyment or you find my videos useful, please subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate that. I've got a goal to reach 1,000 within a year, so it's a big aim, I know, but I appreciate every single one of you that have subscribed to my YouTube channel. A big shout out to Jacinta for suggesting doing some landscapes. So I hope you like this one, and I hope you enjoy doing it with your kids in your class. Also, don't forget I have a Facebook group called Free Art Class, and if you join that, you can post any images that you create from any of my videos that I've put on my YouTube channel. So I hope you've enjoyed today, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of your artwork up. And if you have any questions, don't forget, just write them in the comments just underneath this video. See you next time.